Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes. I would like to add a motion to, add emergency authorization for Kimberly Smith in the area of special education.
Okay,
That's the high school? Or CMHS?
we'll add that to the action items.
Okay.
Cool.
Anything else?
Yes, we'd like to remove from the consent agenda, the new exchange student. That's no longer happening in this district. It's doing different districts.
Yeah, we'll remove that from, that's in the action items as well. So we'll remove that from action items and add in the emergency authorization. Any other changes to the agenda? If not, we will go. And I guess for our audience, we do have a couple of presentations tonight, one for the CTE project, one for the elementary school goals. We are going to start with a session of public comments, but just to let you guys know, after the CTE presentation, we are going to take time for questions, comments as we go through that. So a little bit different, but we are interested in hearing feedback. But we still do want to have the public comments first. So at this time, I'll ask in the room and online, is there anybody who'd like to make any public comments?
So are you not having questions after the presentation?
No, we are, is what I was saying. Yeah, this is our public comment session. We're gonna go to the superintendent's report, do the CTE project, and then at the end of the CTE project, open it up again for CTE specific questions. And then we'll have another public comment section at the end. All right, if there aren't any, we will move to the superintendent's report.
Okay, we have a busy night tonight, and so a lot of my superintendent's report is focused on what's happening within the district. You're going to hear about the CTE project work that we're doing and also the elementary school goals, which is half the district's work right then and there. So I'm going to let them do a very thorough job with that. I will just add a couple of other items to it. That today marked the first day in the 10 years I've been here that we were able to get late buses. And so to give our kids more access to anything after school, activities, extra help, extra support, anything of that nature, alternative schedules, perhaps. We've been able to do that, and that started today. I wouldn't say it was perfect today, but it was good. It was a good start. And then also later on this week, I'll be meeting with the town or some individuals from the town who are going to be responsible, certainly as a joint effort with the school district and with a couple other organizations within the community to start what we would believe will be a sustainable, no extra cost to the community, at least from a tax standpoint view. After school program for kindergarten through 5th grade. So in Ringe, we have a program that is done through the recreation over in Ringe. This is following a similar model to that. The difference between the two locations is that Ringe has a rec center and a building and fields and things of that nature all in the location. And so the learners are bused there who are in this. This is going to be, this collaboration is basically we are offering the space over at Jaffrey Grade School. We have to still determine what parts of the building will be used, when things will be open and so forth, so that we have a good cleaning schedule and doesn't break up what we're currently doing. Because again, we cannot be added to the tax load on this one, but we're very excited with the community support that we have in order to make this happen. We have the Rotary. We're in conversations with our strong partners over at Franklin Pierce University and getting volunteers. We know that we're able to utilize the volunteer system that we have here with National Honor Society and Interact as well as several other groups. There are other groups in town as well who want to financially help this and work with any children who may not be able to financially may not be able to make the modest tuition arrangements that will be put into place to make sure that we can have this ongoing. So we're very excited about that. That's been many years in the making, and it's been a great partnership. It's been really fun to work with the town. John Frederick, the town manager, has been wonderful to work with, and he's been great about working very hard to get the necessary personnel that we need in order to run that program. So kudos to John Frederick for that. And I think that's all that I would like to kind of highlight right now, because you're going to get a whole lot more of a highlight in the next, half an hour to an hour.
Thanks, Ruben. Any questions from the board for Ruben?
I just have a couple quick questions about the late bus.
Sure.
So these are logistic questions.
Mhm.
If a learner wants to take the late bus, how do they go about doing that? Do they contact the bus company? How far in advance does the bus company need to know?
Well, so that's great. The buses are set to leave here at 4:15 or arrive here at 4:15 and leave very shortly thereafter, every single day, Monday through Friday. So individuals who stay after don't need to tell the bus company that they're going to use it. They just need to be able to go on to the right bus. So there are two right now, and this can change. And if there are any changes, we'll broadcast that and communicate that. There's one large bus for Ringe, and there are two smaller vehicles, vans, I guess you say 11 to 12 passenger vans for Jaffrey right now. So right now we have the capacity of about 20 to 25 for Jaffrey and probably like 50 to 60 or so for Ringe. We're trying to get equal access, but you need bus drivers. And so that's what we're working on right now. Yeah.
Cool.
Ideally, we'll have two large buses for Ringe, two large buses for Jaffrey. That equates to two full day runs with the negotiation that we had with them, so that we were not adding to the tax load. We were using our contract that we had and the budget that we had in order to move things around.
Great. Any other questions for Ruben? Go ahead, John.
I'd just like to say that the idea with both the after-school program and with this late bus, the ability to do that while negotiating with our partners and not having to add to the tax load is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and we're providing our kids, most importantly, we're providing our kids and our families with a service that they need. So not only are we giving, better program and access to all of our kids, but we're also providing, especially in the case of elementary after school programming. I mean, that's a big deal for families. That 3:30 to 5:30 time frame is prime travel and work time, and it's important for the financial health and well-being of our families as well, that they have a place where their kids can be, that they know they're going to be safe, and it's affordable and it's quality. Similar to what we've done with our 4-year-old pre-K, making that universal access to families over the years, which is amazing, by the way.
All right. Any other
Awesome.
questions for Ruben? If not, I think we'll move on to the presentation section and start with the CTE project by Ashley McGraw Architects. I believe they're online today.
That is correct. I'll pull up the presentation. And we have Jennifer, I believe, online that I've seen anyway. We have Jennifer, Kristen, Suzanne. I'm not entirely sure who is going to be the main presenter, but they might all speak. There's other people on the team as well. And if they are needing to speak, they can raise their hand so that our technology personnel can call on you and make sure that you are able to present. We'll have an opportunity. You will not see their faces up here on this screen, but you'll hear their voices and then you'll be able to ask them questions after this presentation. We've had a great working relationship with them. They've been with us from the beginning. This organization has been very good about being collaborative from the very start and working with our groups of individuals, both our students as well as our community members who have wanted to be involved in collecting information and making sure that we're moving forward as one cohesive unit. With that, I'll turn it over.
Ruben, when did this start? When did you start working with the architects?
Last year. I don't remember the exact month, to be honest with you. But it's been over a year.
Sometime in early 2023.
Just one, what's CTE stand for?
CTE stands for Career Technical Education.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, want to get it right.
No, great question.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Jennifer, if you just let me know when to go to the next slide, I'll be happy to make sure that happens.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer LaBerge. I'm the project manager for the project with Ashley McGraw Architects. And we're here to provide a schematic design progress update for the Conant High School CTE edition. Next. I don't see the presentation anymore on my screen.
Okay.
Ah, there it is. Okay, great.
I'm on the project purpose slide.
Thanks. I think every time I talk, it overrides it on my screen.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so you've already seen the agenda, so we'll move on to the project purpose. And this was developed as part of the study last year to study the existing CTE programs, which consists of construction trades, and possible new programs such as culinary arts and public safety, through determining existing deficiencies, assess future needs, and design an addition and/or renovated structure for the Conant High School. I'll add here that we did evaluate a renovation project, and it was much more functional and efficient and less expensive to do the addition. So then if we move on to the engagement sessions as a quick overview, September of last year, we came out and had a great couple of days of engagement sessions on site with learners and community members. There was also a second trip in July of this year. Things to keep in mind throughout the design process are communication, collaboration, community, pride, inviting, New Hampshire, and ways of learning. Throughout this process, it was also determined to remove a cosmetology program that had previously been studied. So if we move on to the design drivers. In thinking about the project and again, setting the foundation for how we move forward, we identified some major themes, such as intentional responsible planning of CTE programs to support the local economy, promoting resiliency for learners, the program, and the community as a whole. This would involve creating intentional third spaces to promote interactions outside of the classroom, creating cross-disciplinary interactions and explorations, connective tissue within the school holistically, showcasing student and community work, and to provide a canvas for the school to make it their own. Secondly, we want to engage learners in programs that are exciting, meaningful, and build skills towards a variety of future application. So that involves creating spaces that speak to the local vernacular and context, the use of traditional materials to be explored in new and balanced forms, create oppositeness for branding and school identity, and to provide clear wayfinding. Third, we want to support and enhance the local community by creating connections between the school and industry partners and preparing learners with skills that equip them for meaningful local employment opportunities. So that involves adaptable, flexible spaces, how to become a premier resource for local industry, dynamic and creative environments, and to create a refined, functional, and progressive space. So with that, we'll move on to the schematic design progress package. I'll make a quick note. There are 5 kind of formal design phases that represent milestones through the design process to end up with the completed building. So schematic design is the very first of those formal design phases. And if we move to the building footprint diagram slide.
We have that one up.
Okay, thanks. And what this is showing is the progression from where we left off at the end of the study at the end of last year, which was a rectilinear addition to the existing high school and connector bar. As we started to really delve into the existing and looking at adding an access road to connect the back of the school to the parking lot, and the topography, we determined that by shifting the addition to be on an angle, that would solve a lot of problems with the site topography and would also increase the sun exposure to the new addition. It also tightened up the square footage a little bit. So, was a good effort to kind of tighten things up. And then lastly was the elimination of the cosmetology program and refining how the road would connect to the existing parking lot and provide a loading zone for the construction trades program, which is the diagram on the far right. The next site program diagram is just showing how we're thinking about the different areas around the addition, both on the courtyard side and on the parking lot side, as we start to develop how the building sits on the site and interacts with the existing topography and the existing building and the existing drop-off area. So for the next slide, the floor plan, this is where we currently are with the types of spaces and arrangement of spaces in the addition. And the color coding represents what programs are being shown. And to move quickly through what we're proposing, kind of the purple and that black arrow is the new main entrance and a small admin area. This would be the new front door of the high school, which would open into a corridor that would lead all the way back to the existing entrance to the high school. So this would bring that front door much closer to the existing parking lot and drop-off area. Next to the purple, you see some pink colored rooms. Those are for public safety. What's being shown is a lab space on the corner with the associated prep room, and then 2 public safety classrooms that would be opportunities for flexible learning as well as demonstration areas. North of that, the green colored areas would be the construction trades areas. There's a large open lab, storage, as well as their own classroom and a covered outdoor yard that would provide loading and also outdoor space and areas where learners could work on larger projects. To the left of the front entrance, the light blue is the culinary arts program, which would have easy access out to a vestibule and the new courtyard space. We're also proposing a secondary entrance that would allow spaces such as the demonstration kitchen and dining classroom to be utilized after hours. And then if we want to focus on just the construction trades layout, this is a little bit larger view of what's happening inside that large lab space. Just as a quick note, this area would be recessed, so it's actually at the same floor level as the existing cafeteria, just to give it a little bit more ceiling height to accommodate the projects and the equipment that's going on inside. As I said, there's also a storage room and a classroom space, as well as the outdoor covered yard. The next area is a close-up of the culinary arts program. And what we're proposing here is a very flexible series of spaces closer to the main entrance. It's currently labeled dining classroom, the incubator space, and the demonstration kitchen. These spaces are accessed with a secondary vestibule, again, that could be used after hours in their own restroom. And the idea is flexible variety of spaces that could also be used by the community or opened up onto each other and provide that flexibility for different types of uses at different times. And then to the left is primarily a production commercial kitchen and its associated areas and service spaces. The incubator access diagram is showing different ways that we could configure the spaces for flexibility. We're currently proposing glass garage doors, and we'll have some images of what that might look like a little bit later on. So the diagram on the upper left, all green, is showing the connections that could happen between the demonstration kitchen, the incubator, and dining classroom, as well as the vestibule out to the courtyard, which could have an outdoor cafe or outdoor kitchen component as well. The upper right diagram is showing how they could be fully closed. So you could also have 3 completely independent separate spaces with different events or activities happening at the same time. And then the bottom 2 images are showing other configurations on how one room could be closed off and then the other still connected. Again, if a larger space was desired and having 2 simultaneous events or activities. Moving to the community access diagram, this is highlighting the 2 separate entrances. The main entrance is colored in orange. The secondary vestibule is colored in the light blue. And this is demonstrating that just the demonstration kitchen or dining classroom could be used after hours from that one light blue vestibule, or in concert with the doors to the existing building, the entire proposed addition could also be closed off from the rest of the school, again, to provide the opportunity for different after hours uses without entirely opening up the school. For the public safety plan, this is an enlarged view of the area showing that laboratory space on the corner that accommodates a variety of different styles of learning with the adjacent prep room, and then 2 public safety classrooms that again could be configured in a variety of ways for either demonstration or lecture or other types of learning styles. Looking at the roof plan, this is a proposal for connecting the roof to the culinary arts program as well as the courtyard by providing space for some greenhouses on the top, both enclosed, which is the light blue area, and then the green boxes on white. For the patio could be open air greenhouses that the students, learners could build and tend to individually. At the end is an outdoor classroom space that would be a flexible open area that could be used by the culinary arts students or also for rooftop demonstrations involving, for example, photovoltaic installations, so could tie into other CTE programs as well. And then we can flip through these axonometric views are 3D views that are a little bit more descriptive of how the spaces relate to each other as you move through the addition and then each of the individual programs we just discussed. And let me know when you're on the precedence images slide.
We are on that slide.
Okay, great. So these precedent images are speaking mainly to a proposed look and feel of some of the things we've talked about. So on the far right, the two images labeled incubator are talking about how the spaces could be used individually in small groups or as a more closed off study space. The bottom right picture has the glass garage doors we mentioned earlier so that there would still be visual connection even if there was kind of spatial closure. You would still have that visibility, which is important. The two center images that are labeled partition, I didn't highlight this, but we're proposing along that main entry wall, and we can talk about it a little bit more in some of the exterior discussions. But the idea would be that there would be a display wall as you walk in the main entrance that would incorporate elements of display and branding, and also could perhaps incorporate some small study nooks and booths as shown in the bottom photo. And then on the left, the interior design is speaking to how we would want to expose parts of the building addition as a teaching tool, but also have a bright, clean, inviting aesthetic. So then the next portion is looking at the two exterior options that we're currently reviewing and proposing. So the option number one is we're calling the wrapped facade. And what we're doing here is looking at the addition, how it would be viewed from the parking lot and from the sidewalk, which are the two perspectives in the lower left, and understanding how the topography is happening that makes the entrance maybe not as visible as we might want. And so what we're doing is taking this corner volume that's the lab classroom and proposing to extend a canopy off of that that would then wrap down around the main entrance. And that does a couple of things. It provides a canopy shelter from the elements. Also, by this kind of south-facing light and create a very bright and welcoming entrance to the school. In the lower right is a plan view of what this would look like. And then there's just to the left of where it says vestibule, that kind of double wall. So we're envisioning this canopy could also be an extension of this visual marker that moves you into the building and into the new addition. And then moving on to option two, we're studying what we're calling the portal entrance scheme. And for this, we're proposing kind of bumping up and bumping out a little bit where both the primary main entrance and the secondary entrance to the demonstration kitchen and dining classroom occurs. And as well, this does a couple things. It raises the profile of those entries and makes it more visible from the parking lot and from the sidewalk. It provides a nice opportunity for signage there, as well as kind of we're showing that again, that corner classroom being bumped up with a similar material. But also these portals being bumped up, that provides the opportunity on the roof to provide secondary storage for any activities that would go on the roof relating to either the culinary or the construction trades program. And so these are the two schemes that we're currently evaluating, and we have a comparison slide page. And we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in front of the front entry landscape in a minute. And then lastly, we're looking at the proposed material studies. We're just getting into this. These colors are by no means set in stone, no pun intended. We are looking at predominantly a brick material to tie into the existing school. We would have accents in fiber cement paneling. And then the bottom row are some precedents in looking at this enclosed construction trades yard in terms of how to bring light into the space, but also keep it secure. And then for the last portion, we'll look at the proposed front entry landscaping. We have a slide of precedent images. And so in looking at the site intervention for this front entry plaza, and again, there's a fairly steep drop off in the slope from where you're standing at the parking lot. So we have to negotiate that. So we started by looking at what type of design palette could we use, such as native trees, timber benches, granite boulders, to incorporate a playful element, but also something related to New Hampshire. And we also wanted to provide multiple pathways so that learners could choose how they wanted to enter the building, move through the space, as well as providing some seating opportunities. So then our last slide is a plan view. We're calling the scheme the Cliff Walk. And it's showing that there's a variety of ways you can get from the parking lot to either the main front door or the secondary entrance. So there's traditional straight steps, kind of slightly left of the center, ending where it says +0. To the left of that, there's a series of deeper steps that could be used also for seating steps. If you turn right, there's an ADA accessible sloping route that takes you to various landing levels, again, incorporating these seating steps, and as well as a variety of paving materials before you arrive down at the main entrance. And with that, that concludes our presentation.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Want to ask if there are questions or?
Yeah, I think we're, at this point, now that Jennifer's gone through, I think we'll open it up. Well, anybody here, right? Certainly board, online. I think if you have a question, what's the process to raise your hand? And I think we'll get to you and in the room. So I see Charlie raising his hand first.
And what I'll do just is I'll keep this presentation up so in case any of the questions get very specific to a page. Whether directed from the person who's asking the question or whether it's one of the team members who wants to answer the question and wants us to go to a specific location.
Yeah, could someone provide a little bit of background for if for someone who sees this for the first time, why would even be interested in these adding an addition, right? CTE programs, is that just for Jaffrey Ringe or is that for others, Conval and the Cynic students as well? What is the need? Have we, why have we chosen these particular programs? Okay, and what is the employment need in the county relative to that? I mean, a bigger background relative to why we're seeing the presentation in the first place.
Sure. Well, that's a lot. So
I've gone through this in previous meetings, Charlie.
Yes, but we have people.
no, yeah, so I'm gonna try to give the most information in a concise way. So we have put out every time that we have had a newsletter to the entire community that's been mailed home to each home. a little bit of information about the CTE. And so some of that information can be found in those. And I think that if they're not on our website, then we will go back and try to make sure that they're all loaded up on the website. But generally speaking, the reason for us right now to be looking at these CTE renovation project is because we are 20 out of 20, this regional center, and I say center because it's really 3 schools, Conval, us and Messinic work together to provide CTE programming to the learners or the students in this general area. We have the construction trades currently right over here in that different shaped and looking building. And then the Messinic has automotive over there, and Conval has a variety of programs. Some of their programs they've stopped doing, they want to add some other programs. But this is an opportunity with state funding. This is, again, we're the last on the list of this 20-year cycle of state funding of CTE programs. And so we're up for that. Programs have traditionally been awarded funding have been provided 75 cents on the dollar or 75% of the funding, and then the rest of the funding raised by either local taxation or other means, donations, what have you. Conval, Messinic, and this school district right here are all doing, are all putting forth proposals. Conval's is a little bit similar to ours in its scope, different programming. I think we might be a little more, we would want to add 2 programs that we don't currently have already that certainly don't exist in this local region. So that's a little bit more. I think Conval might be adding 1. I might be mistaken on that one, but doing some renovations and then I think adding a program. And then Messinic wants to remodel, add a little bit of newness to its automotive. So the reasoning for going forward right now, again, is because this is an opportunity for this school to be able to potentially get 75 cents on the dollar and be able to get that type of funding. And provide our kids here something that they otherwise would not have access to. Now, there were surveys, there is information as to what the job markets are, all of these areas, culinary arts, construction trades, which construction trades, just for definition, is carpentry, electrician, plumbing, so forth. It's construction trades. We switched over from carpentry to construction trades because we wanted to have people have a larger understanding of what the fields or the trades are. And so the future focus is that there are going to be a lot of jobs locally as well as certainly around the country. We do have, when talking to the Department of Education, they did indicate that public safety, which is really the broader of these, the broadest of these 3, it can be for teaching law, for those who want to, learn more about the legal system. It could be teaching about forensics. It's teaching about, perhaps law enforcement. So there's different parts of that law. So, there's being an attorney, there's being a police officer. I know that the Department of Ed indicated that the State Department, the state troopers, that organization has been looking for a partner and might be interested in something like this if we were to set up a program here. We did start with fire science as something that we wanted to add. That was something that the Department of Education said they would not support, so we have removed that. Yet EMT would be part of it. So, and those are programs that our local region cares about. We know our first responders and so forth. But it's a CTE education in general is not just about job growth. That's important, but we don't want to pigeonhole individuals at 17, 18 years old, if they know that's what they want to do, then absolutely, let's give them the opportunity and the skills to be successful right out of high school. But these hands-on programs teach kids those other what I think are formally known as soft skills, but are really these 21st century skills of collaboration, communication, creativity, critical thinking in a very experiential way. And so regardless of what programming they're involved with, when our learners are following their interests and learning how to learn and how to unlearn and then how to relearn, that's what they need for their future, regardless of what programming they do. And CTE is that type of programming that best supports that within the public school environment. So that's what we're excited about. Yes.
I think it's also worth mentioning that there was a huge interest in this 25 years ago when a new school was proposed, but for a variety of reasons, our communities decided to stay with the current schools to make them larger, connect the middle school and high school. But in that process, we missed out on an opportunity to have a larger career and technical education program. And I think that's something that many in the community miss. And so surveys that have been done have indicated that there's a real interest in having career paths that don't require college education and that help young people get into solid professions. And as I think you mentioned already, these three areas are areas that were supported by the surveys that were done.
There was a lot of interest in cosmetology as well. A focus group of the community members came here and indicated that they felt the project was large in scope and wanted the work to go forward and wanted the project to go forward, but it was something that they felt the community needed to be behind, and that the 3 extra programs as opposed to the 2, plus improving the one that we have, which was the priority of this group, was too much. And so we took out the one that the majority indicated was the one they felt needed to be removed. And so we listened to that community.
I think what I heard people saying was that it's an important career,
It is.
cosmetology, but it may not be necessary to have.
They felt there were other avenues to get
Other
there.
avenues, right? And the construction trades program has been very popular in our area, not only in the school, but also as a career for young people to really have a solid way to earn money and to advance. But currently, we only really have enough space and ability to deliver a fairly limited portion of that, largely carpentry and construction.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, we've improved it significantly, but we can do a whole lot better. And yeah, certainly giving these individuals that exposure to say, hey, is this something that we'd like to do? And they can pursue that further through other types of learning after school, after high school, or getting a job and then growing in that field while getting their certifications and stuff as they're earning money rather than, getting into debt, is something that I think, we need to consider very intentionally for our learners here.
Ruben, if I could just
Yeah.
add, we have an enrollment of 1,200 in the district.
Mhm.
Of course, not all in the high school, but this is a program that's going to serve the entire community, not just members of this school. People who are homeschooled, people who are in private schools also will have access to
That's
this.
true.
And it's an important part of the service to the community. And the other thing, and I know this has been mentioned, in fact, the presenters, Jennifer, went into this a little bit in terms of access to culinary arts. But these buildings are to be designed in such a way that they can be used by the community.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about through the beginnings phases, especially when we were talking about Route 202, and Jennifer talked about doing, a feasibility study and could it be out there? And the reality is, without having had prior construction out there, it was way too expensive to do. But that I lost my train of thought, sorry.
Open.
Just the idea that the
Open,
community.
that's right, but the
the
messaging at that point was like, hey, we need to have kind of a community center or something of that nature. And this is something that we could do to, you know, as a proud part of our community, but design it in a flexible way so that after hours it could be used in a different way. And some of these, like culinary arts, if you're providing a service during the school day, people are able to come and enjoy, you know, a meal in the community.
Yeah, we spoke a little bit about, you know, cosmetology being, you know, removed from scope. And if I'm remembering correctly, part of that was due to feedback from the state, right, about the size of the investment. So we have been, just to be clear, working with the state for the last few months because this will have to pass through the legislature and it's, you know, a bucket of money that is probably flexible. But that was an example of us listening to them and our community about the size, because it's really important that certainly we improve construction trades. We'd also like to add new programs. It was tough to cut cosmetology, but ultimately I think it gives us the best chance to move forward with the project. Another point, I think when we talk about the data, Charlie, that we saw, certainly all of these are backed up by data from the state and from industry that they're needed. And it's funny, if you look at, you know, the data and even anecdotally, right? If you talk to people, adults will say, you know, construction trades, that would always, you know, in our focus groups was always the #1 priority. Certainly is for us too. If you look at the data from the students, interest is overwhelmingly in culinary arts. And I know, at least personally me, that it was taken into consideration. Like I hear what adults want. And I look at the data and I say, well, you know, 3 times as many students are interested in culinary arts. Certainly something to consider as we're establishing a program. We want something that kids do want to sign up for as well. So anyways, I think we've probably talked enough. I'd like to open it up to the floor.
Hi,
If you could just say your name and your
Cheryl,
town of
my name is
residence.
Cheryl, I'm from Ridge.
And for
Do I
the,
need a microphone? Do I really-
Yeah, it's for the
people online.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and
So,
for
you touched on,
Could
one
you
of,
state your full name?
oh, certainly, Cheryl McCabe Sharon from Range.
Yep.
I've been very interested in New Hampshire moving more towards this type of education. But it does come with a pretty hefty price tag. But you touched on one of my questions. I am curious, I guess it was the state that made the decision on what trades would be more viable in a situation like that. Is that correct? Was it the state that came up with the data that the culinary arts would be big, that construction, that it would be fruitful for the community? I'm just wondering how that information came to light. That's my first question. Do we know?
So, yeah, some of it's state data. It's also local and state data that we were able to find. Some of it's also, some of the data that we have is survey data with that's interest, but that's not, I don't think that's what you're talking about.
So are there reports or?
The
Or-
information was gathered from reports that was given to us by, some of it by the CTE director. And so I don't have the original reports on those, but it was from information provided to us by.
So I just want to be clear. I guess I was under the impression that the state came up with, these are the needs that we see in your area, but that's not really the case. I'm not trying to poo-poo it. I'm just trying to get to the
The
bottom of,
Department of
how we-
Labor in New Hampshire. So you're asking a question.
Right.
I'm getting information live right now.
right, the
So
Department of
it's
Labor provided
an
this
EL
information.
Called, yeah, ELMI, if you want to read, look at that.
Yep, that's fine.
ELMI data, yeah.
I'm wondering, what kind of a price, well, I'm wondering, is there a cap on the 75 cents per dollar? I mean, you could spend all the money in the world. I mean, you say that the state is going to match us
There is a cap,
75.
yeah,
Okay.
so that's part of the conversation about reducing the programming and not having the cosmetology. So right now, we don't know what that cap is at this point in time. We do know that we've been told when we originally put our desires out there that we that while the commissioner indicated that he would, certainly present this and fight for this, that we would be able to have an opportunity to do that, there's a lot of competing interests. For instance, there's a men's prison that's up for funding possibility as well during this biennium. And so we don't know exactly what we could get.
And if there's other CTE
And there are other,
programs. that are-
Milford is also trying to get in here as well. Now, Milford did have a vote last year and that did not pass to move forward, but they have modified their programming expectations also. So I think they're going to try to have another vote in March.
And just to be clear, like the next step would be through the legislature, right? So even though we're talking with the.
Because they have to approve the funds, is
They
that
need to
it?
approve the fund, so that will come, I believe, like in December, as we continue, to advance this plan, understand those costs. That would come to a vote at the legislature, I believe, probably in the September timeframe, and then it would be voted on locally in March, assuming it passes.
So you mentioned, looking at that space, I don't know how many square feet it is, but you mentioned there'll be carpentry, plumbing and electrical. I mean, those are three very separate trades, but so is it the idea that when somebody leaves here after going through this, that they'll be able to apply for their certifications? Will they be at that level of skill? Or is it going to be they're just touching things to get to know what it's like?
All of these are supposed to have some industry credentials attached to it as well. And so that's part of the building this, getting some community partners, whether it be through community colleges or local institutions, industry, to be able to provide individuals who go through an entire cycle or set of programs to have some sort of industry credential.
So what would a cycle be? Would it be 3 years, a year,
Be 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years? And my last question. Do we have any idea what the operating budget would be for Jaffrey Ringe with this in place? When I say operating budget, salaries, all the nuts and bolts that go along with it. Have we thought about that?
Yeah, we have thought about it a little bit. We have, culinary arts is certainly somewhere we're going to have more conversations about the individuals who would be teaching that course, whether we have someone internally, that's a possibility, and then or whether we need to go out for that position. That could be an added position. We do have some of the public safety courses already within our school. And so we have some people who would be able to teach some of those courses. Again, maybe there's a part-time position that would need to be considered. And then the construction trades, we have that program already, so that would just be changing the space itself.
So do you have a high or a high and a low of an operating budget? I mean, if you've thought about it.
We're starting budgeting right now, and that's part of our conversations.
Okay, so we don't know at this
We
point
don't
what
know
that
at this
would
point
be.
in time.
Okay,
But other things that we have to consider within the budget is maintenance, cleaning, things
Sure.
of that nature.
all right. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Claudia Stewart. I'm also from Ringe. What are the number of students that are going to be served by these programs? You say there's interest from the parents for the building trades. You say there's interest from the students for the culinary arts. But overall, how many students do you think are going to be served by building this addition and by putting staff in place? And then the added cost of utilities, heat, et cetera, for the new space. How many students are actually going to be served when it's all said and done? Year 1, year 2, year 3, things like that. Because while you have a certain number of students in the school system, you only have a certain number of students here in high school so far. And then a percentage of those would be interested in one of these, but not all high school students will be interested in this.
Mhm. So we did have some data on that. What I have for current information is that we currently serve about 50 kids per semester in construction trades.
Is that just from Jeffrey Ringe or is it from all three?
Mostly from Jaffrey Ringe, but there are some from historically from Conval and Messina. but the majority have been here. And so I could see maybe some similar numbers for those other programs.
Okay, so you have 3 programs that would be 150 students a year for this addition and for the added cost.
Per semester.
Per semester.
Per semester, so that would be double.
Well, let's assume that, yes, but they're gonna have to stay in those tracks. They're not gonna be 50 new students.
Mhm.
They're gonna need to stay in those tracks in order to get their certification. So basically, for the 4 years that a student would be in high school, you would be serving the same 150 students plus the new ones that enroll each year.
Yeah, that's that's very likely to be the case.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carl Pruder from Ringe. I had a basic question going back. One thing that was in the presentation was quickly dismissed is the cost of renovation would be higher than new construction. But what were they planning to renovate in terms of the building? Was there anything in mind or just a general sense of that? And I have a follow-up on that.
Can you repeat that again?
In the presentation, there was, is this on? Yeah.
Yeah.
In the presentation, they said that renovation would cost more than new construction. That was in, I think, the first 5 minutes.
Yes.
What were they referring to? Were they referring to a building that people plan to renovate, or just the whole idea that new construction would be cheaper?
Route 202 was part of that.
Right. I think, Jennifer, would you like to take that one?
Sure. So there's a few things to consider with renovation. It is often a lot more expensive as a base cost. There were issues with continuity of programs, and adjacencies of spaces. There is also a lot of operational issues in terms of the spaces that we would renovate to take over would be a dramatic detriment to the functioning of the school, as well as take large portions of the existing school offline for several years. And even with looking at renovation, there would still need to be some new construction component anyway. And then lastly, there is also some complexities regarding how the state funds could be allocated. And so it's a lot more direct, and it doesn't impact the operation of the existing school to do it all as an addition.
I guess my question is going on. Right now, we have a church that's for sale across the street. It's a fairly large space. If that were acquired, it would be adjacent to the building. And I think it's going for about $500,000. There's also possibilities of a Victory School is across the street in the other direction. If that were acquired, that would be another space that could be gained. So more like $2 million. And I guess one of the other questions I would have is, we're talking about maybe $20 million for the whole project. That's equipment and building. So how much of it is in the building cost compare, that would be done versus renovation? And how much is it equipment that needs to, kitchen stuff and everything else is fairly expensive. And, so in terms of equipping the facility and the cost of actually building it. So would renovation of adjacent buildings be more expensive or not? And it may be. I don't have the answer.
So, again, I don't know if Jennifer, if you can answer some of that. We certainly did not look at acquiring the property across the street for this purpose, or I don't know anything about Victory. But I know that they looked at Route 202, our property out there, and that would of course been more expensive because you have to do so much work to put something there. I think that if you were to do any, if, for instance, the property across the street, I don't know if the footprint meets that footprint or not. But that would all be new construction. And then if the board had wanted to go and try to acquire that property and so forth, then to do that, which I think it's about 0.4 of an acre is what I think is there. You tear down that building and so forth.
Well, I'm not sure it needs to be torn down. It may be, but,
It would not meet the needs of anything that we would be talking about here. It's a house attached to a church kind of,
What's a barn?
auditorium, yeah.
Right.
Type of place. It
Okay.
fits about 100 people. I mean, it's a nice little place. I've toured it.
Yep.
Has a nice little kitchen below, but certainly nothing that would come close to meeting the needs of an educational space. Maybe some good office space over there for that, but the property itself, the land, I mean, we'd have to be brought down and
Yeah, and I think
built from there.
certainly part of what we've been looking at too is the timeline, which is dictated by the state, right? This is kind of a once and forever opportunity. We've been working on this, for well over a year. And, that property became for sale a few months ago. So if we had known about it a year ago, might that have been something we understood? Yeah, but we have, proceeded pretty far down this path. And, I think we're confident that, we've looked at a few different options and we can get more data on that certainly, but we've looked at a few different options and I think the large group of people that has that input feels comfortable that this is the one we at least want to present to the community and move forward with.
I did have one follow-up.
Yeah.
I love the idea that the career is more than framing. And that people be introduced to the plumbing and electrical, which have a great need.
Yeah.
I know a former student who went to Pinney and apprenticed there and eventually went out on his own. Have you looked at some of the people who hired? There are a lot of construction people. Would they be interested in this program in terms of accepting some of our graduates as opposed to, having them come out and go through this and then not have a real market? In other words, have to go through the whole apprentice process anyway. Is there a need for it or demand for it on the employer end?
Well, we have employers who have been part of our advisory groups.
Yep.
And so they've spoken to the need. The data that we spoke of earlier from the Department of Labor indicates that need is going to continue to grow over the next many years. And so, it's difficult to answer the question when I think people I think people are interested in hiring people who are skilled and who have the right, the ability to, again, learn and relearn and continue and have a good work ethic. And so if individuals come out of school having that, I think they're very employable. And if they come out having gone through any sort of programming and then don't have some of those, I think that people who are looking to hire are going to think twice about that, because it's not just knowledge of the curriculum itself. It's the knowledge of the curriculum along with everything else, those 21st century and those skills and those employable skills and those thinking skills.
Thank you.
I'm just curious if you have any hands up online as well. No? Okay.
Ashley, sorry, resident of Ringe and also from the Monadnock Ledger transcript. So, after taking out the cosmetology piece, what's the current square footage that's estimated for this addition?
Jennifer, are you able to answer the estimated square footage?
Sure. So the total building footprint as shown is 20,000 and change square feet. And then There would be some additional square footage on the roof. So it would be an additional. And again, we're still studying what is the appropriate size of the rooftop program, but essentially,
Approximately is fine.
yeah, so approximately 33,000. That does include some outdoor spaces as shown. So, but again, the building footprint as currently shown is that 20,321 square feet.
And do you have an estimate on construction costs?
The original, we have to re-estimate construction costs. The original numbers that we were putting forth to the state was around 27 million. And that was a number that we felt was, you know, with inflation and so forth, put in there was likely to cover everything. We need to get more planning done to get better costs and to get people on the construction manager on board to make sure that we are getting a tighter, more accurate cost prior to going to the state in December or November, December. We took out the cosmetology, which should knock off about, you know, we're estimating, this is not the, we're estimating, you know, about 5 million out of that. It could be a little bit more because you don't have any of that equipment either. And so you could be, I think someone said 20 million, it could be 20, 22, it could be 18. It could be kind of in that range right there. We may have estimated too much to start off with, but we felt that was a safer way to go. And then of course, 75% of that we would hope that the state would, you know, take that and we would be dealing with the 25% internally.
And does the district have a plan for using any unreserved funds or capital reserve funds, or would that just be a straight request on a warrant article in March?
But we have to have some discussion about whether or not we can find alternative ways of funding. I think generally speaking, it is a warrant article. It's going to have to be a warrant article in March for the majority of that. I would think, but the can you repeat the first part of that question?
Just whether there is any planned use of unreserved funds or capital reserve funds that have already been set aside.
So we do not have plans to use that. I'm not sure that those we have one fund. It's really for the repair and maintenance. I think renovation, it could be utilized a little bit. We certainly only have a drop in the bucket for how that could be utilized. And we have other things that we need to work on in our school district that we have planned for, such as windows and doors and things of that nature, which are going to be ongoing costs as well as we have aging facilities.
And sort of last question, if everything goes perfectly and the state legislature approves the funding and then approves this project to get that funding, and then
Right.
the towns both approve it at
Yeah.
the polls, none of which is guaranteed. I understand, but what would be the timeline for getting construction off the ground and then getting it complete and students in those classrooms?
Yeah, so I think the timeline would be next summer to start the break ground, to start working on it. If all of that that you just mentioned got put into place, came to fruition. And then I think it would be easily at a minimum, you know, another year after that. Construction, I mean, you know, you can run into difficulties when you go into construction.
So earliest fall 2026?
The 26-27 school year. Yeah.
I have another question or comment. Can you remind me what the school budget was for this past year?
32 million.
32 million, okay. So 32 million, and this is 27 million for the project. And then in addition to that, we're going to have increased operating cost that will affect the taxes of our local people. But I'm going to say, this is the reason why I'm here, and I'm going to say the elephant in the room. When I look at what the proficiencies are for the students at this school in math for 2023 at the high school, 29% math proficient, English language, 55% efficient. I would rather see this money going towards improving those so that every student that leaves here is able to learn in any job they take, that they can compute math, that they can read and write well, that they have critical thinking. It would be wonderful to have this beautiful building, but I don't know how we can sit here and ignore these numbers and spend this money on this building.
Yeah, I'll just say certainly we don't ignore those numbers, right? We're very familiar with those numbers. We do a lot here in the district.
Well, I guess I
And-
need to hear
and
what
we-
we're doing
and
about
we
it.
address, and we address those things as well through, many other efforts. We talk for hours and hours about it, and we could.
Well, I think that the best way to answer that is, please stay for the next presentation. You're gonna see and hear a lot of what we're doing about it, and have been actually, because we've been refocusing and rebuilding this organization for the last decade, and we are in a very nice upward swing right now. Because we were in a spot where we were just flatlined. If you watch the video from the last school board meeting, you'll see a presentation from the middle high school that will also talk to that very question and answer. That I think will probably give you more questions. But David, the principal, did a really nice job being able to talk about what we have done and where we have grown and what we're doing to continue that growth. I think that it's not an either or. I think you got to hit, everything's a system. So and learners are all different, and they come at literacy and numeracy in different ways. And so career and technical education programs also help those individuals who need a different way of learning those materials, or that material or that curriculum as well. It's just more of a less traditional approach to doing things, but the school district has significant plans already in the works and already being put into place. And we believe, and we have goals that are going to aim directly at making those numbers go in a very different direction. And it takes a lot of effort, a lot of processes that have to all work together at one time. But again, I think you'll get a glimpse of some of that in the next presentation.
So I'm just going to say, and this will be the end for me.
Sure.
I graduated 2 children from this district in 2012 and 2015. I was a very involved parent. Charlie, I don't know if you recognize me, but I was on many committees. I was very, very involved. And my kids did well. They're doing well today, but it certainly took a lot of work for me and my husband. But I will tell you that this was a concern then, and they have gotten worse. I've sat through many curriculum committee meetings. It just doesn't seem to be going in the right direction for me. And I applaud all of you for working as hard as you do. But I'm telling you, from a historical perspective, it is going the wrong way.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of context historically as well. When I say that we have changed things in the last decade, it's taken that long to do so, because the trends that you had back then were never going to change. Those trends will change, but we also have to look at apples and oranges. The data that you were looking at back then that was not good was when assessments were extraordinarily easier than what the assessments are right now. The state assessment right now is significantly more difficult, as it should be. And
So
so
why is that a problem for us?
I think it's a problem for a lot of locations, but you're right, for.
Why is it a
us,
problem for us?
It's a problem in the sense that we, this is what I would say the problem is. We, as a school district, did not have a pre-K through 12 articulated curriculum in any subject area.
I would agree with you.
We are a lot closer to that now. We have definitely, for the first time ever, this middle school, high school has been accredited from NEASC, and part of that accreditation is the fact that they had to show that they had a articulated curriculum in all areas and are now on a improvement cycle, 6 through 12. That's significant. That took a long time to get there. It took a lot of work and it took a lot of restructuring to get there. So I would say that was a problem. I think that we have a societal situation where we have an ever-changing society in what people kind of come to the school system with, from a standpoint of whether it be how they learn or behavior or what have you, that we have to work with. So we're working with the entire child and we're working with families. There's a lot more need than I think ever before. And we're happy to do so, and we're doing a great job. And we'll continue to do so. Professional development. There was no articulated, no approach, no plan for professional development that was going to build on each other year after year after year. That is not the case anymore. That is in full force right now. You'll hear a little bit about that tonight. We even have, English language arts programming that's research-based, that's articulated from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, everyone working together on the exact same scope and professional development. We just have to keep on, building the capacity. Part of building that capacity over the past 5 years is building our leadership capacity. And I'm not talking about leadership as in our principals and so forth, although we have phenomenal positional authority leaders right now who are all on the same page. But we're talking about utilizing our teachers in a way where they're not just individuals who are presenting information, but they are creating and adapting and working together to build an inspiring educational system. Individuals who are on the ground know the kids the best, and they have a voice and decision making in how we move forward. And leaders like myself or principals you'll hear from a little bit later on tonight, where we are empowering them and finding the resources for them to be able to create. So to build an environment that is helping us meet our mission that we developed in 2017-18, around that time frame, of making sure that we engage, empower, and inspire all learners to thrive in their lives and communities. Your questions are valid.
Well, I want to
Very
thank
valid.
you. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank the board because I know how much hard work this is. But I do think you should be prepared in front of the voters to be able to defend this very thing.
Yeah.
To spend this money and to have this type of scores, it's, to me, a difficult thing to support. And I want to support it.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I thank you for bringing that up. That's so important.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you, Cheryl, but all of you for your questions, because that's what we need. We need, first of all, to be prepared to answer those questions, but also to think about the questions that they raise and how they should be answered. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I think we have one question that came in online.
Would an apprenticeship program in the field where students actually earn a salary be more affordable project? Building trade unions do offer journeyman training in place already. Why not use existing education training programs in place now?
I didn't get all that at all. I'm sorry. I mean, can I come over and read it?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. With an apprenticeship program in the field while the students actually earn a salary, more affordable project. Building trade unions do offer journeyman. Okay, I see what you're saying. Why do not? What I can say by that, and that's asking about utilizing the work locations that already exist.
Microphone problem.
Yeah, I'll get back over here. This question is more about, is it the best way to, spend our money and do education through building a building and having all that education happen within that building, or getting these kids out into apprenticeships? Part of CTE, part of this whole educational process is getting kids out into apprenticeships, but also getting them prepared to be able to do that sort of thing. So I think it's a combination of both. I know that the high school has graduation requirements starting this year that the individuals need to either be in apprenticeship, or they need to take extended learning opportunities, or they need to be, doing something else that's kind of beyond the curriculum. And so, and that's only going to grow as we move forward. Again, it's in a perfect world, getting all those relationships, so and having them all in place to be able to and to ensure that we actually have that many apprenticeships, and then make sure that insurance is there, and we're able to get individuals out there through transportation and actually have transportation to all those places. That would be great. It's unrealistic to do for all. It is definitely realistic and something we need to continue to work on to make sure that we have a better partnership with our school district and the community at large. It makes sense. It's a good question.
Any other questions from?
I guess I just want to address the question that was asked earlier about how many students would be engaged in these classrooms. And we have estimates about how many we think students would be in culinary arts. But one of the other things that we do know right now is one of our more popular clubs, after school clubs, is our culinary art clubs, Baking with Baker. Some of those programs are competitive. So there's opportunities to engage students, not just students who are interested in pursuing culinary arts or construction trades as a career, but also will be taking a class here and a class there. I sat on I reviewed some scholarships last year and read student essays, and was honestly and truly blown away by the number of our students who want to go into forensic science. That is, of those scholarships, that was the most common job that people wanted to pursue of the scholarships that I read. So these are not students, these are career-bound students who would still be taking classes in these programs to pursue their college goals. So we don't actually know what the numbers will be, but I'm sure they're higher than we can imagine, because these kids are truly looking for ways to learn, creative ways to learn. And of course, they want to be treated with respect and to know that their future matters.
I think there's another thing to think about as well. And this was my conversation with the commissioner last time we met, was our kids deserve this too. So I grew up on the other side of the state, that side of the state on the seacoast. A lot of those schools, if you were to go down there, a lot of them are new. First of all, they have CTE program. I've looked at what they have, and these individuals have access to an incredible number of offerings that our kids typically don't have, or we'd have to travel very far in order to access. Our kids here on this part of the state, in Jaffrey Ringe, at Conval, in Peterborough, Messinic, New Ipswich. They deserve to have this type of programming as well. Now, what's nice about our region, it's also difficult about our region as well, is that we share with our region with 2 other schools. What that also means is that we benefit from anything that they pass over there. They benefit from anything we pass. No one location has to flip the bill for the entire construction. And so we're able to disperse that throughout all of the communities. But our kids in this community deserve access to this type of programming. And not to have to travel over the mountain over to Milford, which some have suggested we should do for some types of programming, which is to me is a safety concern, among other things. To have kids be part of their own school and have a sense of belonging, that's important. And if we can do this and provide them these resources and this instruction at a time, you know, and leverage the fact that the state will give us 75%, it's certainly something to consider. Yes.
Yeah.
Matt Minahan from Ringe.
Just wait for the mic for a second.
Matt Minahan from Ringe. Just touching on something you just said, you said that the three school districts kind of share cost. Does that mean that they'll be sharing in our 25%?
It means that Conval's project that they're going to work on, that would be their district's responsibility to pay for. Anything that Messinic builds over there, that would be New Ipswich's and you know, Messinic's responsibility to pay for. And anything that we would do here, that would be our district's responsibility. That's what I mean by
Are we
sharing.
competing with them for the same pot of money, or they would be in addition to what we get?
It would be kind of both. So it's going to be separate from what they get. Are we in a way competing for the same pot of money? Yeah, it's an unfortunate place that we're at. We're competing with Milford and the 2 of them as well. We're trying to work together. I know Messinic's project is a little bit smaller, so they haven't changed that one. But I know that for us and in Peterborough, Conval area, they've made some adjustments to theirs. I think we've made the biggest reduction within the region of our original scope, and Milford has shaved a fair amount off of their original, which was very large ask.
And when that money is divvied up at the state level, that's determined by the legislature.
That's determined by the legislature, and the legislature that's not yet in. I mean, it's going to be a different legislature than it is currently right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
And like I said, you know, we're going to be competing against some other big projects, and we have been repeatedly reminded that they're interested in developing a men's prison, a new one.
Thank you.
Don't forget to vote.
Any other questions? I think we're probably at time on this. I know we have a lot of other important things to do, but I think as a few of the other board members said, we do appreciate you guys being here and getting this feedback. And I think everyone here understands this is a big ask, right? This is not a small plan. This is a big plan. But we think it's important. And I know I'll speak for myself personally, you know, as a school board member, to have this opportunity. I see this as like a once in a lifetime opportunity to advance this. We do understand that there's some costs. We'll do our best to minimize that and come up with ways to creatively fund it. But it just didn't feel right. And to me, it would be kind of irresponsible or negligent just to ignore this opportunity to present, as you see, a very well thought out plan to the voters to decide ultimately. So, you know, that's what we've been working on. And ultimately, it'll be what the legislature and the voters of Jaffrey Ringe decide. But we do certainly appreciate and understand all of these concerns.
And I'd like to thank Jennifer and the team for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right. So next up, we have elementary school goals.
So tonight we have both elementary school principals, Jaffrey Grade School Principal Deanna Zilski and Ringe Memorial School Principal Nikki Fraley. Okay, Oh, I think you can actually present from your seat if you'd like. Whatever you would prefer. You can stand as well, either way. But Nikki Fraley is the Ringe Memorial School Principal. You will need the microphone, however.
We need a microphone.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time this evening. So as Ruben shared, I'm Deanna Zilski, I'm the principal at Jaffrey Grade School. Nikki Fraley, I'm principal at Ringe Memorial School. So we're going to present our school goals this evening. And before we begin, and we're going to talk about our process for goal setting, I think it's really important to note that we are not setting goals as silos. We are working really hard currently to collaborate across all three schools and make sure their goals connect to each other as we are a pre-K through 12th grade program. And we really want to make sure that we are creating success for all of our learners throughout that entire scope and sequence of their time with us. So at the next slide, it speaks a little bit to that process where we started by doing data analysis of AIMSweb, which is our benchmarking tool, in New Hampshire SAS, which is a statewide assessment, as well as in-school assessments from our classrooms, summatives and formatives, so bigger tests that assess learners' long-range goals, as well as smaller assessments that look at more finite goals and skills. So we looked at that data analysis and we talked with each other, and then we also, oh, did I turn it off? I totally turned it off. Thank you. Sorry, Karen. I don't have to start over too.
Okay, good. Sorry, thank you. And then what we did is that we came to the entire SAU 47 admin, and we met this summer at an admin retreat and looked at all of our PK to 12 data to come up with some common alignment. We then, as 4 elementary school principals and assistant principals, discussed our shared data and looked at strands. And then we had school level admin where RMS discussed and JGS discussed separately. And then we came back together to look at our goals. And then we sent our goals to staff for feedback for the feedback cycle. And that's how we got to the goals that we're going to present to you today. At no point in time did we want to do any of this work separate from each other.
Thanks, Deanna. Something else to know, especially for the board, or if anybody was here last time and heard from the high school team, you're going to see a lot of themes, a lot of commonalities. You may even see very, very consistent language. In fact, some of our goals may actually be very similar to the goals that are at the middle and high school. I think that goes back to Ruben's point earlier about we have been really fortunate in the last handful of years to make some pretty big leaps as part of our administrative team and coming closer together, being more aligned, having a clearer vision for our students, and then clearer practices within our schools that while our journey and some of our goals may look slightly different, or rather the goals really look kind of the same. Our journey to reach them will be a little bit different because we are all unique schools with unique learners and staff. But we're all heading in the same direction. So if you go to the next slide, we really have 4 strands of goals. These are the same 4 strands of goals that you would have seen from the middle high school 2 weeks ago here. Our first strand being around, we love our acronyms, so multi-tiered systems of support. In the last handful of years, we've been very focused on behavioral health and wellness. That focus continues, but sort of like zooming out a lens too, thinking about MTSS, so multi-tiered systems of support, bringing in the academic component. So we're really thinking about all the facets of a student, of the whole child, not just their behavioral health and wellness, but their academic success as well, all in one place. We have some very data specific goals with regards to some improvements and growth that we hope to see with regards to our students' performance with mathematics. We're not in a curriculum renewal cycle with mathematics, so it's a great time for us to be really seeing changes in our statewide data to the point that was made earlier, there's room for improvement. We want to be better. We are not average schools, and we do not have average teachers or average students, but some of our data shows that we are getting somewhat average results. And so we have to change some of our practices and some of our professional development to really ensure that our learners are successful. The literacy goal is not tied to data. You'll see that we are at the very beginning of our literacy work with a new K-8 instructional resource, a new curriculum program. There are some other new pieces that extend outside of that too, including our pre-K learners. So our literacy goals are more around process and really great professional development, which will lead to great instruction. And then our last goal really focuses on sort of like all the data that helps move all of these things forward, thinking about how are we collecting data in a timely way that is consistent so that we can monitor success, make adjustments in the moment, sort of like every third of the year, we're taking data and responding to it in the moment, but then also kind of zooming out and looking at our longitudinal data so that we are not making growth in pockets, but that it's really systematic change and systematic growth that we're seeing year upon year over time.
I think we're good. The next slide. So what you'll see here is that we have larger goals documents that talk not just about our overall goal, but the items underneath those goals, who's going to be responsible for those goals, and then the time frame of those goals. So to start with our MTSSB goals, JGS's goal is to develop a shared behavioral support vision that encompasses classroom, school-wide practices, and the school community through the use of CASEL resources. CASEL is another acronym for Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning. CASEL resources are also used at the CMHS level as well as at RMS as well. And so the RMS goal, RMS staff and administrators will utilize a clearly articulated multi-tiered system of support for academic, social, emotional, and behavioral wellness to support targeted skill development at all grade levels, PK through 5. So we are at slightly different places within this just because we've started processes at different times. RMS had started an MTSS process, I think a year before ours last year, and we had started an Owl's Nest a year before theirs this year. And so when you look a little bit more finitely at what we're going to do to process there, we are doing the work that the two schools are coming together with to be in full alignment for next year. We both have teams called MTSS teams, which again is the multi-tiered system of support teams. And within that team, teachers can refer learners for any reason for academic, social, or emotional or behavioral. And then we talk with the families. We look at the data around the learner. We make a plan for success for that learner to see them succeed and grow in those areas. So we have, in addition to the MTSS teams and the reflections that we're going to be doing around that, we have continued reflection on the Owl's Nest as well as the Eagle's Nest, which is a regulation location for schools. We have teachers within both of those spaces. Learners can go to those spaces to do work, to receive additional help and support for their continued growth and behavioral supports. And then we're also looking at making sure that we have a clear and defined vision for how to continue this move forward. We've talked about it for a few years. This is my second year in the district. And so we've talked about it at least for that long. And I know certainly for many years before that, because there were goals in place when I came. But our school has not really fully articulated that as a school-wide vision. And that's a lot of work. We really want to do that so that we can make meaning behind what we're saying and really move that meaning forward in purposeful ways.
Yep. I think like Deanna said, the articulation piece, there are a lot of great things that are happening at both of the schools with regards to MTSS. But I'm going to speak particularly for RMS at the moment. They are wonderfully great, incredibly impactful things that are dependent on the people that we have and not the systems that are in place. So if they are all on a joint lottery ticket and they win big and they take that knowledge and expertise with them. And in what is left behind are good stories and what the things that people used to do. So one of the things that we're really focusing on this year at RMS is not only putting some very clear practices and structures in place, But once you look at the detail of our goals doc, that very last piece of the MTSS goal is that we will have a clearly articulated plan. So it doesn't matter who the people are. This is who we are at RMS. This is our philosophy. This is our belief. These are the practices that are in place. And it is no longer down to the wisdom and the excellence that our individual educators bring, but more to do with who we are as a school and the systems that are in place for this year's learners, and 3 years down the road, those learners, and 5 years down the road, those learners. So it's about building sustainable, systematic practices that will endure no matter who is teaching in a classroom or leading the school or providing an intervention.
Yes. Our mathematics stream. Okay.
So as we heard earlier today and have continued to discuss, we know that mathematics is an area in need of focusing and really working to not only increase our proficiency levels on state testing, but also our mathematical awareness. And so as we look at it, we wanted to really look at the increase in proficiency by utilizing hands-on and minds-on common mathematics instructional practices that result in an increase in percentile of learners reaching proficiency or above on the SAS, which again is that statewide test, and Ames Web Growth, which is a more regionalized growth marker that we do 3 times a year from fall to spring in K to 5. So in the spring, we'll come back with data around that. And what we want to make sure that we're doing within that, we utilize something called OGAP during our summer that teachers are engaged with. And what we're really looking at, as Nikki said, we don't have a new tool for teaching this year. So it's a great time to analyze the work that we're doing and really focus on instructional practices. So the intentional use of the math tool, making sure that professional development from OGAP is really being utilized, that we use math manipulatives. We moved away from math manipulatives during COVID because we couldn't use them. And so learners were more and more on computers, and we want to get that number sense back into place for our learners. And then at the end, we're going to talk about using what we learned through our PLC, our professional learning communities, to look at, discuss, analyze the data, not only our benchmark data, but our during the year data and the data that we get from classrooms.
I really don't have anything to add to that one. It's worded differently, but essentially our goal is the same. We're going to increase our students' proficiency in mathematics. It's needed. We have a lot of great professional development that's happened with regard to math in the last handful of years. We've also been able to support a teacher within our elementary schools to become a trainer in OGAP. OGAP stands for the Ongoing Assessment Project. It's really focused on formative assessment and mathematical thinking. So it's not about teaching children how to compute, but really about how to be problem solvers, use their strategies, deep understanding of number, and being able to work with numbers really fluidly, so that they're fluent and proficient no matter what the problem is that they encounter. So we'll be using her pretty extensively to help move our practices forward, our instructional practices, which then will impact student learning. This one you've heard a lot about in the last 12 months. If you've been following board meetings, following the budget, we have talked about literacy so much in the last 12 months, and probably a little bit longer, in fact. We're really excited to be working so closely with the middle high school. We have and when I say just, I mean like everybody K to 8 now is deep into their work with our new literacy program called Wit and Wisdom. We are really making some pretty significant shifts with the way that we are teaching reading, writing, speaking, and listening K to 8. And so our goals are not data driven in terms of like looking for particular outcomes on our assessments, but rather really focusing on making those instructional shifts so that we can lay a strong foundation for our students to then be able to make those pretty significant jumps and changes with regards to their proficiency on standardized assessments. Something that is sort of embedded in here too, is that preschool part, that really beginning of speaking and listening, and then learning to read those emergent reading skills. So thinking about phonemic awareness, really understanding that what sounds mean and how sounds are words broken into different parts, and being able to take words apart and put them back together. So it's not print, it is not letter identification, it is really at the sound level, helping learners to kind of build that phonemic awareness, so that when they do start trying to make connections between sounds and letters and forming letters, they've already got a really strong place to start from. So our literacy goal really focuses on massive changes with our instruction.
And to follow up with that is coming some significant professional development for our teachers and really all of our staff, including our related service providers and our paraprofessionals and our UA teachers. And we've been really lucky to be able to collaborate with Great Minds, which is the organization that created this ELA tool. And we're going to have on-site coaching. They've already come and done several days of professional development with administrators as well as teachers. Moving this forward, we really want to make sure that we're doing it right. And one way to do that is to give the teachers the tools that they need to be able to really teach with intentionality and with the rigor that this program requires for them and for our learners. So we're very excited about that. And this goal isn't just with this one tool. The other thing at the elementary level, we're also, as Nikki talked about with preschool and pre-K, we have other tools, one specifically Heggerty that looks at phonemic awareness. And then we're also using a program called Foundations, which we've used for years at both schools, which is K-3, and that's about phonics. And so we're really looking at intentionally using these tools, really looking at the way they connect together, really speaking to the way the brain learns literacy and takes in the information and then is able to put that information into thoughtful response. And so it's really a pretty broad and exciting change that we're making. Doing it K-8 is very exciting. I don't know if that's happened before, so I'm excited to be part of that. And then our last strand is universal screeners and data-driven instruction. This is around PLCs. And so this is kind of where all of these goals or all of the strands tie together, in that this is what we are using to ensure the growth of our learners and the growth of our teachers is through using PLCs, professional learning communities. And we use a very specific approach that's data-driven. And so this goal for each of our schools is about really creating a consistent PLC process that's sustainable, as Nikki spoke about before, regardless of the players. And then the other thing that we're using this year is that the preschool teachers and the pre-K teachers are utilizing the desired results developmental profile as a universal screener. So we didn't have that before, and that's brand new to both for many of our classrooms. And so that's a big part of this, is giving that professional development, make sure that we're using it so that when our youngest learners in our buildings are moving on to the next steps in their education and learning, we have strong data around where they're at and how we can help them grow. But this really speaks to a universal data approach where it's not just about one piece of finite data, but really looking at our literacy, our mathematics, our behavioral pieces, making sure that these tools are in place and sustainable.
I don't know that I have anything to add to that, other than I just want to highlight again, like this strand is where sort of like the rubber meets the road. It's where it all comes together. It's kind of like the confluence of all the other strands. This process, our PLC process, it is the thing that not single-handedly, but definitely will have the biggest impact on our ability to be successful, and therefore ensure that our learners are successful, because we are taking the excellence. Like I said, we don't have average children. We don't have average teachers. We have excellent educators. And when they can work in these collaborative processes together, all students benefit. It's no longer that you have the benefit of being in Mrs. Zilski's class, and so you got the gold, and sorry, you were in Mrs. Fraley's class, so you just kind of got average. The students in my class now benefit because we are working so closely together that her strengths impact my learners, my strengths impact hers, and so on and so forth. But it's system-wide throughout our schools, pre-K, all the way through the high school.
We're working cross schools also, which is another exciting thing, is that not only are we having the opportunity to learn from each other within our building, we're also having the opportunity to work and learn from each other across buildings. And that's not just RMS and JGS. Now that we have a K-8 program, it's really encompassing all 3 schools. And that just means that the more we can talk to each other, the more we can learn from each other, the stronger we can be as a whole community. Oh. Right. So we wanted to look at this also just, this is a visual that's used in Wit and Wisdom, which is one of our ELA tools that we're using, but looking at how these goals are driving the goals within each school. So we have our school-wide goals as the big umbrella, and then we have team level goals. So each of our grade levels are creating team level goals based on these school-wide goals. And they're in that process currently. Ours, I think, are slated to be, finished by the end of November. I think that you all are working on yours right now as well. And hopefully earlier than that, but we want to make sure that they're really specific and doable. And so once those team goals, and then they create it's IPDP, which is the independent or the individual professional development plan. And so that's just yet another acronym that we utilize. And those are individual goals that teachers are setting. So basically we have our school-wide goals and then team level goals that will fall underneath that, specific to their teams. And then underneath that, individuals will each have a set of goals, 2 or 3 goals that they're working on that will fall underneath their team level goals as well. So this goal process it really affects change across all of our school and everyone within the building.
If you've seen Ruben's presentation with the arrows, right? So people are like nodding, and you've seen it maybe a few times. Oh, Ruben's going to pull it up. Thank you, Ruben. So Ruben has this slide or this graphic that he shows often, and it talks about like system change, right? And that we have so many things going on in our schools, with individual learners, with teams of teachers, with departments, with all different, there's so many different ways to consider what a school district and an individual school looks like. But he has this image where all the arrows are going in different directions. And I would say that this was maybe SAU 47 a little while ago. There is not a part of me when I think about our goals. I think about the alignment between the 3 buildings, the support that we're getting from the SAU. There is not one arrow right now. I can speak at the elementary level, and I think I speak for JGS too, and I think I speak for the middle high school too, that is not moving in the same direction. So even when you go back to that slide, when you think about our goals, the minute detail of a teacher's individual professional development goal contributes to their team-wide goal, which contributes to our school-wide goal, which really contributes them back to our district mission and vision about students thriving in their lives and communities. I don't think we've ever been moving in the same direction about everything in this way. And I've worked in a number of different school districts, and I don't know that we've had this clarity anywhere that I've worked before too. It is really exciting. It's really invigorating. It's a lot of work. But I know, even just from my own perspective, it doesn't matter if it's a question about curriculum or attendance or instruction or supervision and evaluation. I know that I can pick up the phone and ask Deanna a question, or David Dustin a question, or Anne-Marie Oshiak, or anybody else. I can ask the question, and everybody knows what we're talking about. Everybody has a consistent answer. And I think that that's evident just in the way that we've set goals and what our goals are hoping to allow us to achieve. So it's pretty exciting. And there's one more slide. And they're the hyperlinks. I know the board received a paper packet where it breaks these 4 strands of goals down into really much more detailed items. And we can certainly answer questions about specific items or about our goals in general. We've alluded to or spoken directly to many of the things in here, but rather than going through kind of step by step, we wanted to give you an overview and then provide you with that information for questions.
So I'm scrolling through this right now, just so that people who want, I mean, we're not gonna obviously go into detail, but just to show you that these are some of the bones behind what was just discussed. That was JGS. RMS has a similar one here that you can go and take a look at on your own time, and I'm sure people will have more questions. It looks a little bit different, but by and large, it's the same type of approach. Timelines, who's responsible, what the work is, what the goals are within that. And I guess my question to you is, how did you go about developing these goals? I understand the district side of things, and we've been working together for a long time, but you spoke to this slide right here. And I know I haven't been a part of this piece right here. How does this, did you utilize other people to develop these goals? How are they all developed?
Do you mean our school-wide goals?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you go to the very second slide.
First slide.
The second, that one, oh, that one right there.
Yeah.
So really starting with the analysis of our data, so both academic as well as behavioral data, and we had shared information with the Ed Committee in August that highlighted some of the themes and trends that we had noticed as we've looked at longitudinal data, really looking at the last 3 years. So data analysis, understanding where we are, conversation at the SAU level with leadership in the summer about not only where we are, but where do we want to go. And then really sort of like that set the stage for then working more at the elementary level about like, so how do we make this, how do we bring this to life within at the elementary level, or how do we now bring it to life at our school level? So those are the next two pieces. And then also, you know, sharing goals with staff. And then, like Deanna said, staff using this either to offer feedback, but then also to craft their own team-driven goals. So we have a math goal around increasing our proficiency, but what does that really look like at the first grade level is going to be very different than what it looks like at the third grade level, based on the learners and the data that they have for their particular grade span. So now they're setting goals that are specific. So like we're kind of like funneling down to very specific things that they'll be doing that are measurable and time bound and that they'll be working on throughout the year. That's really how we got there. And I would say that I think the hardest part was articulating it on paper, because we know what the work is that we need to do. We've been talking about it as a team for a really long time. And so just putting the goals together on paper was really a no-brainer. It was pretty straightforward to be able to say, these are really the big buckets of things that we've been working on. And the school board has heard at the elementary level that we've been working really hard with responsive classroom, with Second Step. That social emotional component of our learners has been so much of our work in the last few years. And my analogy is always, without those pieces in place, it's like trying to put soup in a basket. So it doesn't matter how great your math lesson is or your literacy unit, if we don't have classrooms that are based and create an environment for students where they feel safe and welcomed. It doesn't matter how great your lesson is, it's not going to stick. And so we've worked really hard the last few years to create classroom environments, school environments, where we've closed the holes in the basket and the soup won't run through anymore. So now we can really make those significant changes with our instructional practices. So it's like it's all coming together because we've laid a really strong foundation.
Yeah, questions, Lisa?
I have a few. So one thing I wanted to.
I've got 5, 6.
Not now.
I know.
So the, in both of your goals, so I'm looking at the sheets you gave us, so in the, I don't know if you want to go to the.
Sure.
To those, both of them, you start with the MTSS B goals, and by and large, that's the vast majority of the dissected goals.
Mhm.
Are you finding that you guys are really spending a great deal more time on behavior than you are on the math and literacy aspects?
I don't think I understand.
So,
I'm sorry.
yep, so in each of your schools, it starts with the goals for MTSSB.
Mhm.
And especially at the Ringe one, it's outlined very detailed for 2 pages. And it's still long for Jeffrey Gray. And so I just, are you finding that a great deal of effort right now, especially since COVID, because I know we've talked a lot about it, are going into the behavioral, social, emotional aspect of, like, there's a lot of goals here compared to the math goals.
Yeah, I think RMS, it's broken down into a few different sections. So we have a number of sub goals particular to establishing a really robust MTSS team, and then building our Eagle's Nest, which JGS did last year with the Owl's Nest, and then thinking about academics. So this just doesn't focus on behavioral health and wellness, but also academic interventions, and Tier 1, which is all learners, their social emotional learning. I think this goes back to my point. If we don't do this right, if we don't get this part really solid, sort of what we do in our subsequent goals won't matter, because this is really about creating a culture and a climate within our schools that ensures that all learners are included, feel safe, feel connected, and feel understood, so that we can do the really hard work with math and literacy. So I would say, are we managing behaviors all the time? No, I would say not. I would say that we are being very intentional to be proactive with everything that we do, so that we are not responding to misbehavior. And we're more laying the foundation to reduce those kinds of behaviors that could be disruptive to the learning environment.
So, some of the components that are listed under RMS for learner academic interventions fall underneath the JGS PLC goals. You'll find them there because it's really about that data-driven piece. And so as they're looking here, you'll see this says use AIMSweb data, looking at entrance and exit criteria. Similar subheadings are underneath the universal screeners goal for us, which is our 4th strand. And so if you look at our 4th strand, it's quite, if it goes on for, I think, 2 pages for how we're going to utilize that. And so some of that work for us, we placed underneath this header because we were still looking at JGS's MTSSB, and they broadened their MTS goal for both. And so our academic MTSS component fell underneath our universal screener and data-driven instruction, whereas RMS fell underneath the other strand.
Yeah, going from it, okay. On the JGS, to kind of carry on to that, the JGS math strand goals, there's just 4. And
Yes.
I am concerned about assessment data and low achievement in math. And one of the 4 goals is using math manipulatives.
Yes.
Do you guys not have math manipulatives?
We have a great deal of math manipulatives. However, we have not been using them as to create support and sustain numerical understanding and number sense. During COVID, math moved completely online. And so learners utilized electronic manipulatives instead of really hands-on manipulatives to be able to break apart numbers and put numbers together. And we are working intentionally this year to get math to the ability for learners to keep math before moving into the abstract, staying in a place where they can deeply understand that. And one way to do that is through math manipulatives, through tens blocks, through ones blocks, through being able to construct and deconstruct numbers. And so for us, we hadn't been utilizing manipulatives with intentionality, at least not last year when I was here. And so we really wanted to add that back in because it was not a consistent part of our math programming. So that probably seems like, oh, that's interesting to put math manipulatives in as a goal, but we had lost the use of math manipulatives over the course of COVID. And we saw our learners, if you look at our data, this was one of our data understandings, is that our learners' number sense has been decreasing over the last several years. And so one way to increase number sense is to make sure that learners understand what a number represents, and to make sure that they, before they move to the abstract, they understand that piece, and manipulatives are a way to do that. So we wanted to make sure that we put it in the goals, so we were very intentional in using it.
Beneath that particular strand, the OGAP, and
Yes.
thank you for saying what that acronym was. Nope, you were right there. So it sounds like that's an assessment, training teachers to be able to utilize assessments and read the data. How many people went to that training?
Whoa, I do not have that. A lot. I do not have that
Can I
number with
clarify,
me.
Can you explain what OGAP is? Because I think that there might be something different than what was asked.
Sure. So just a little bit of background on OGAP within SAU 47. Probably around 5 or 6 years ago, we had the opportunity, the state Department of Education worked with New Hampshire Learning Initiative to provide OGAP training to educators in the state of New Hampshire free of cost. It is a pretty intensive, it starts off as a 4-day intensive training focused on a particular, particular math strand or stage of learning for math. There are 4 different strands or stages of learning that OGAP really focuses on. And so over the last 5 or 6 years, I would say that we have encouraged, it is over the summer, and so we can't require staff attend, but we've strongly, I probably would have, people would say I nag. We've strongly encouraged people to attend. I would say that we've probably got now at least 30 members of staff within our school district who have participated in that training. And like I said earlier, we have a math specialist who is a trainer in 2 of the 4 strands. So that's additive reasoning, multiplicative reasoning, fractional reasoning, and proportional reasoning, which is more appropriate to upper middle school, maybe early high school. So at the elementary level, we've really focused on additive, multiplicative, and fractional reasoning. It's not just about assessment and how to use assessments to decide what to teach next. It's really robust instruction that we lacked is pre-service teachers that really helped teachers to understand mathematical thinking. So when you go through the training, you actually engage with math. You are doing math. You are living the life of a math student to understand the progression of knowledge and skills within that band of reasoning, so additive reasoning. But it then helps you identify when I give students a prompt or a problem that is non-computational, so it's not just 15 plus 3 or 227 minus 9. It's usually a problem set, so a question about math. So it could be, anything from there are 64 crayons in a box and you have 8 learners in your classroom. How many crayons? So it's more open-ended and they're solving problems. How they solve the problem is the most important thing that you're getting out of that assessment, because it really helps you understand where they are in their mathematical thinking. So then you can look at a progression and understand, where do I go next? How do I correct a misconception? How do I identify what some lagging skills are? Because the end result is not teaching students the standard algorithm. The end result is really teaching students how to reason and understand mathematically, no matter what the content is that's given. So I'll give you a funny example. Last year, we asked at RMS, second, third, fourth, and fifth grade students to engage with 2 problems. One was a standard algorithm for a subtraction problem that required regrouping. And the other was an open-ended word problem that was around division. The majority of our students in 2nd through 5th grade was significantly more proficient and were able to get to the right answer with the division problem because they hadn't been taught a standard algorithm. They were just reasoning mathematically. And so more students were able to be successful with that. But when we put the problem in front of them that just required them to compute, many students made errors in their computation because they had learned a process instead of having mathematical understanding and reasoning of what they were doing. So OGAP really speaks to that piece around helping students make meaning mathematically, not just learning a routine or a trick or a kind of like a dog and pony show to be able to get to the right answer, but not know what they're doing mathematically, which really puts them in hot water when they get to the middle and high school, because it's no longer that deeper level is so essential for them to be able to use that proportional reasoning and be mathematicians instead of just regurgitators of facts.
And that's part of the answer to a question that was asked earlier about, concerns about math proficiency and things of that nature. And the concerns, yeah, we should be concerned when we don't have evidence that shows that, proficiency is where it needs to be. But it's a system that needs to work together in order to build proficient learners. It can't be a year here and a year there, and we'll try this practice here, we'll try this practice here. It has to be built. Thinking and critical thinking and is built over many, many years, and mathematical reasoning, problem solving, and so forth is built. And that's what you're talking about. Yeah, because when you get into the middle school and for the data that's based upon an state assessment, that state assessment changes significantly from concrete, from, application, but fairly straightforward application to fairly abstract material. And then synthesizing multiple mathematical practices, your additive reasoning, your multiplicative reasoning, your fractional reasoning, and some of your proportional reasoning all together within one problem. Yeah.
One other thing about OGAP, though, is that our Train the Trainer that we help support train actually led. We were fortunate enough this summer. We said to NHLI, pick us, we want to host a training for any educator across the state. So we did. We hosted a multiplicative reasoning training here in district this past summer. And Kira Bell, who's our math specialist, was one of the co-trainers, co-leaders of that work. So we're seeing the excellence within our educators not only impact our own educators and students, but also really making a great impact across the state, which is really exciting too.
And I have just one more, if that's okay. So onto the literacy area, you guys just started Wit and Wisdom, and so that's your goals are focused on the training and that. Is that currently also being implemented at the same time as training?
Yep.
How's that going?
We just started and it seems to be going well.
It's great.
It's great.
It's great. The students in K through 5 started last week or the week before with something called Module 0, which is really about establishing instructional practices and mindsets around literacy. And so it's been great. There is a common thread throughout our school of language being used. Everybody is noticing and wondering. All students engaged in something called a tableau, which if you're not familiar with, so it's like a freeze frame. So although you were watching a movie and then said stop and you freeze, and so students are acting out emotions that are occurring in the stories that they're reading and rereading. So it's going well. It's hard work. Our teachers are working really hard because they are driving the bus and reading the manual at the same time. They are really working so hard. But they're excited and already seeing a shift in how kids are talking and engaging in questioning. They did a Socratic seminar with first graders last week. So we're moving and shaking. They're doing great things. But I would like to highlight they are working exceptionally hard to bring it all together.
Any other questions on the elementary school goals? I guess if we don't have any, thank you very much. We certainly appreciate you being here and sharing all the certainly great things you're doing. We hear, feedback as a board, like anecdotally from our community about good things you're doing, but I don't know, for me personally, just to see you guys recognize that, but also know that you're continuing to try and improve what you're doing there, improve results. I think that's, as a board and as a community, what we want to see, right? That mindset. So all this is very, to me, encouraging. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to also say thank you for the information and for the clear energy that you have. It's
It's very exciting. And I just have to echo, this collaborative team is energizing and joyful to work with, even when looking at hard data and having hard conversations. It's an incredible admin team, so I feel very lucky.
great.
All right. Now we're moving to the consent agenda. It's close to 9 o'clock, not the latest we've gotten the consent agenda, but I think, all very important. I'd rather have things like this, I guess, than, one of those ones where we include the consent agenda and move on and adjourn. Certainly, it's all very important. And nice to have some people in the audience, although no longer. But
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate people.
Can't blame them, but they hung in for a while, didn't they?
I thought that was all very good. So yeah, moving on to the consent agenda. Anyone have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended.
And I'll, yeah, good.
Right, just for clarity, I think that the amendments were both in the action items, so the consent agenda
Thank you.
is,
So nothing on the consent agenda was removed?
I don't believe so. I believe it was just on the action items.
Great, never mind then. Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as written.
Lisa.
I'll
And then you said, okay.
15 seconds. Yeah, any questions or discussion? John, looks like you have something.
I do. I was wondering about this stipend list. It looks to me like the amount of stipends has increased since last time I saw it. Is that that's supported by the data?
What are you talking about in?
I was looking for a good question to ask while my colleague Charlie.
Oh, got it. So we have. We're gonna wait for Charlie. We have, I think at one of our recent board meetings, right, we did revamp the stipend amounts for teaching and clubs to align with districts around us. We hadn't updated in 10 years, so yes, I think we're starting.
Is it something I would
Is
say?
that going to be next year that we're implementing?
No, we're
that?
implementing that this year. I think there's some other numbers that are high there that are a little bit different than usual. Those are more, like for instance, like a Gene Nanaselli is a great one that's over $40,000. That's something that he did last year, is paid through school of grants. And that's behavioral support at the elementary level, implementing the restorative classrooms. And so it's not just like a one-time thing, it's an up to amount based upon the number of hours and so forth. Similar with, we have a student here, a learner who's here, Jaden Bryan. I'll take a number out of there, 8,900. Or that's basically saying, all right, up through the course of the year, we expect that person to be covering or supporting the Little Oriole Center by that many hours. If she last year, some individuals went over that, so we had to redo the stipend, and some people did less than that. And so that's the idea there. We also, to be transparent, we have situations, I think we've talked about this before, maybe not in public session as much as that we have high needs in, like for instance, the area of special education, and we have for years, and our administrators have been covering a lot of that detail. And so we have been trying to recognize them for the work that the basically 2 jobs that they are doing. And some of those, I don't know whether they're on this particular one right here, but some of those, we'll go quarter by quarter.
Right. Some of those
If we
costs will
find,
be
if we
included.
find someone to, teach those areas, those will stop. But if we have, for instance, Storm is a good one. She is doing her entire administrative job, that none of that has come off her plate. Plus, she's actually leading the work over at the ILC in Ringe. It's important that we take care of our people within reason.
Right, and this is a
Certainly
way
not
to
to the
do that.
level of, another new teacher, because some of the work overlaps. And so we take that into consideration as well.
Great, well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Additional information.
I think it's good questions, good statement.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? Yeah, I always like to acknowledge the donations. Looks like we have a donation of $2,972.49 from the alumni golf tournament for the golf team activities account. So thank you very much. I'm sure that's going to make a huge impact for that team. And I always like to see that from our alumni community to support the schools for sure. And to go directly to the kids, I think is great. So if there's no other comments, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed and abstentions. So that passes by a vote of 6 to 0. And we'll move on to the approval of the September 9th meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the September 9th meeting minutes.
Thank you, Lisa.
Second.
Thank you, John. Any questions or discussion? Not, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the September 9th school board meeting minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed and abstentions? That also passes by a vote of 6 to 0. And number 8, familiar item on our agenda, the request to waive facility fees. One for the town of Jaffrey. And one for Jaffrey Parks and Recreation Department. I know we've had an MOU in process. I guess I'll ask the question now, Ruben, just on how that's progressing.
Sure, it's been sent to both towns. There's been some feedback, a little bit of feedback, but also it needs to go to select board members. So I think that's going to play around for a little while, and then we'll bring it all back and take some input, put that in there, correct a few mistakes, and then in just the language itself. And I think we're getting closer. We'll be closer. Both seem to be well received, the concept and the language up so far. But there's more input that is needed from the towns.
Okay.
Can I ask if the after-school karate program at JGS, would that interfere with the after-school program? The town after-school program?
So this is what I would say to you on that one, is it could. So, one thing that you could do, because we haven't, I'm going to preface this with, we haven't been able to meet to determine where the locations are of things. The after-school program, the space, for the elementary kids is going to impact something of this nature. It also could impact some of the athletic team practice that we already have within our own district. We're going to have to be aware of that. Heather Lindstad is quite aware of that. I will say that Jaffrey Parks and Recreation Department, in doing this right here,
Yeah.
Again, we have to have a conversation with them, but the Jaffrey Ridge Recreation Department is part of the structure of the after-school program. And so this could be a club on one of those days that they offer. We have not met to discuss how this would fall into play. You know, perhaps it's a contracted service, like for instance, after school programs often contract with the Harris Center, contract with the circus, contract with other enrichment organizations to come in. This could be an enrichment organization that they could contract with. They could look at the karate program as different than how they did it before. It could be part of the tuition, perhaps. So the only thing I would say, yes, it's Jaffrey Grade School Gym, but it could be another location. And so if you want to make an adjustment, that would be the adjustment, gym or available space.
I think last year there were a few times when it was due to school sports.
Yeah.
Moved to the cafeteria.
Yeah, because the school gets private.
Yeah, so I think that was okay.
And so this will have to be worked out with our MOUs on this after school program that's starting. Hopefully the middle of October, but it might be closer to the beginning of November. We'll have to see.
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion on the request to waive facility fees?
I would make a
Special
motion.
town meeting. Sorry, John.
So I'd make a motion to waive the facility fees with the understanding that the karate program would take place at the grade school gym or other location as appropriate.
Very good. Someone like to second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Christine. Any further questions or discussion?
Charlie, is it, I don't know if I can say, so on the 23rd, the special town meeting, is that a set, like that is happening? Or is that kind of case that happen, like? What is the special town meeting?
It's happening.
It is happening.
They're gonna buy the bank building.
Okay. So probably it's gonna be, okay, so I think that's in our budget. That's in our budget planning as a big meeting for us. So wasn't sure if that is gonna be a conflict for our,
11, what,
on the
11,
23rd,
23?
Is that the weekend prior to
Thanksgiving.
prior to Thanksgiving, yeah. So we haven't put forward our budget planning calendar yet, but
Yes,
I think that was supposed to be our work day. So probably it's not gonna conflict.
But we wouldn't be meeting in the gym.
Right,
It might conflict with if like public, I suppose, wanting to attend, but
right,
that would be it.
right. No, I have no problem with it, it's just that I know that was.
Saturday, as at the CHS lobby. It's right around.
So, not a problem, I know, it's just, that's something to know that's.
Yeah, it's
Busy
happening at
day.
the same time. Whatever the
Mhm.
special town meeting is.
So the Jeffrey Ridge Middle School Gym, is that what that's being called now?
It's what was put on there, Pratt Auditorium, Pratt Gymnasium. It is the middle, on paper, on the diagrams, it is the middle school gym. It's the Conan,
Well, I thought it was either the middle high school.
it's
gym
the
or-
Conan Middle High School gym.
Okay.
All right, I think we have a motion and a second. We had some discussion. Any more discussion or questions? Okay, we can move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the request to waive facility fees, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? So those both pass. With a vote of 6-0. We move on to action items. The first one being a request for an educational study trip. We can open that.
So I think this might be the.
Yeah, what is the trip to?
Let me just see if that. I clicked the handbook, so maybe I did.
There's one to Clark University.
Here we go. In Worcester,
in
Mass.
Worcester, Mass, educational purpose, to the chemistry department to learn about science and STEM majors and have an opportunity to perform a hands-on lab. Second one is a trip to the Boston Freedom Trail. To walk on the Freedom Trail and visit the Boston Tea Party Museum.
That's for middle school learners, 7th grade, I guess it is, right? And the upper one is for the chemistry,
Right.
I believe.
The last one
STEM,
is
yep.
for a trip to the Dominican Republic. In April.
And that's interact.
Yeah, it has date submitted as 1/29.
It might be,
I wonder if this is here by error because it seems awfully early.
it
for
seems
them to
awfully
be
early,
putting
like
in
this
for
might have been
April.
attached by accident. I mean, it looks like last year's
Yeah, it says students are returning in April.
April, yeah,
So we're gonna take this one off,
yeah. Take the last one off.
okay? And so what will be voting on here is for the chemistry class to go to Clark University. And for the 7th grade trip to the Freedom Trail and the Tea Party Museum. Somebody like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the request for educational study trips to Clark University and to the Boston Freedom Trail.
Thank you, Christine. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
I heard Charlie first. Charlie seconds. Any questions or discussion? Okay, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the 2 requests for educational study trips, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed and abstentions? So that passes by a vote of 6 to 0. And then we move on to the Jaffrey Ringe handbook, second reading.
Just as an aside, I was reading about tourist ripoffs. And one of the tourist ripoffs that they mentioned was the Freedom Trail, because it's nothing like it was back in the revolutionary times, and it's nothing more than, you know, a tourist trap now relative to places that want your money, so.
I would like to think with a proper, well, if I was just walking on it by myself, I think that would be true, but if I was walking with a history teacher, I bet you it would be, or a guide, I bet you it would be actually be pretty informative.
Make it come alive.
They're historical places, I agree. Yeah, I'm not voting no on it, I'm just saying.
I understand.
I'll make a motion to accept the employee handbook for 24-25.
Thank you, Lisa.
I second.
Thank you, Sandy. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the employee handbook, please indicate by saying aye.
Hi.
All those opposed? Abstentions? That is approved by a vote of 6 to 0. And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. This is an approval of a vacation time extension.
So basically, this right here is our individual who is our payroll personnel. Due to a variety of things, she mentions the absence of some.
Can I just ask, why isn't this non-public? I'm confused on this one.
It can be non-public. It's a matter of it is on here on public.
I don't know,
And
I'm uncomfortable with that.
that's fine.
It's a staff member.
Okay. It's just a,
If you read 91.
yeah,
Okay. It,
Read the RSA, yeah.
if you read the RSA, this would qualify as public meeting. We're not talking about compensation, and we're not talking about hiring. So,
or discipline or anything of that
yeah.
nature. Yeah. So it's just saying here, this person had a benefit, person, has had to cover for some other absences and so forth, and which has made the person need to be here and not be able to utilize the time that within the allotment time, and just wants to be able to carry, not lose those days.
Yep.
This is she's asking for an exception, one-time exception.
I believe it's 1 day.
Is
This
it
is
1 day or is it 2 days?
I'm glad this
Okay.
came up because this is an example of not being able to fill positions or having or being able to backfill positions is really painful. And I understand her problem is that she wants to take vacation, but she can't because she's filling in for somebody else. Through no fault of either, but of anyone. So,
So she's asking it just for 1 day. That was 2, sorry.
Would make a motion to approve.
All right, thank you, John.
I'll second.
Thank you, Christine. Any questions or discussion? Move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the vacation time extension of 1 day, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Mhm.
All those opposed? Abstentions? That passes by a vote of 6 to 0. As discussed previously, the foreign exchange student application is no longer applicable, so it was removed from the action items. And we added an additional action item. It's been 3 hours, so. I need to check my
Kimberly
notes.
Smith, CMHS, special education. For an emergency certification or emergency authorization.
I make a motion to approve emergency authorization for Kimberly Smith in the area of special ed for Conant Middle High School.
Second.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Lisa. Any questions or discussion? We'll bring that to a vote. All those in favor of approving the emergency authorization for Kimberly Smith, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? That passes by a vote of 6 to 0. And move on to item 10 in our agenda, which is board committee updates. So we'll start down at this end of the table with John.
Okay, well, the facilities committee met on 9/16. We talked about capital improvements planning. And our goal of trying to make sure the community understands what it is that we have to do to maintain our buildings and keep them viable for the coming decade or decades. And then included in that is a need to update the community on some of the improvements that have been made. Discussion about our decision as a community to keep these buildings in play and not build a new high school. And remind them that in a way, this is a validation of their decision. But within that context, we need to enumerate our assets, what the identified problems are. Perhaps talk about some things that are unknowns that could come up, but have a capital improvements plan that responds to that. We talked a little bit about whether there should be a warrant article that would lay out some money for a capital reserve plan. And frankly, we aren't sure whether that makes sense. So that's something we need to revisit as we move into the budget season. There is a plan for the next quarterly mailing to come out, and that will include an invitation to the public to meet and tour our facilities and get involved in facilities and bring them up to date as well as keeping them up to date, which are kind of two separate things in a way. And anyway, I won't get off into it, but some of the questions today about the CTE, from some of my colleagues, I really appreciate the comments made about how our children also deserve some of the same kind of benefits that are available to students, learners in other parts of the state. So, but this is all part of that process. Sandy, Christine, I don't know if you'd like to add anything?
We have we talked about some specific dates for the facility tour, which was October 19th. And we talked about inviting that original athletic committee to the school board meeting on October 7th. Is that correct? To hear a presentation by Gail and Associates.
So we need to get Gail and Associates to come and do a similar presentation to what our architects did for the CTE. And also we want to re-engage the individuals who really were responsible for bringing that whole concept on board as well.
But you did a great job, John.
Hmm?
You did a great job. We really discussed a lot and you summarized it well.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Charlie, do you have anything?
Finance committee met and basically, we agreed on the department budget presentations to the finance committee on November 7th, 9 to 12 and 3 to 6, and November 12th, 9 to 12 and 3 to 6. We put forth a budget development calendar. Carrie did, and the committee agreed with her to forward it to legal and didn't run it by legal before we announce it. But that currently calls for a school board review of the budget on the 18th of November, Saturday, the 23rd, if needed, and December 2nd, if needed. And then the rest of the meeting dates are in the calendar, which we'll publish next month, or as soon as legal approves it.
Is that earlier than we normally do it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit,
I
it's
think
a
it's
little
good.
bit earlier,
Yeah.
but not a whole lot.
Yeah, a couple weeks.
So that calendar is not posted, like, how do we get that posted so people see it?
Yes, we approve first.
Which calendar?
The budget development calendar.
Oh, it's budget development calendar. As soon as it's approved by legal, we can post it.
And Charlie, anything else?
That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Christine?
Anything else?
All right, there's a wellness committee
Regional
meeting.
Finance
this
Committee meeting on
Wednesday.
11/7.
Yes.
Regional Finance Committee meeting.
Lisa, anything?
Policies postponed until the New Hampshire School Board Association comes out with their fall updates, their priority list especially. Should be sometime in October. We'll set a meeting after that. And then legislation, we need Kim to be part of that conversation to set up a meeting there, but there are updates to legislative action happening. In particular, one that I can update you on is that Ed 306, the minimum standards, was supposed to be voted on, at least in part, in September, and they decided to postpone that to November when they can do it as a entirety, as a whole thing. So the minimum standards is postponed again, which is perfectly fine.
And I think they said that you're right, mid-October is when NHSBA will have everything that needs. They said they were a couple weeks behind.
Sandy, anything? Okay. So that's board committee updates. Next up for discussion items is district organizational charts.
Yeah, really, this is kind of like a first reading, but we're just trying to get some of these artifacts, I guess you could say, out to the board in advance so that you have awareness. This also impacts budgeting. So before we go, the largest part of our budget is personnel, right? So just to kind of see how things fall. And so Leslie and others working on this did a fantastic job in making sure that it was neat and I think accurate. It is certainly possible that we could find something again after double checking, triple checking and so forth, that something is a little off, but you can have a good understanding of looking at whom reports to whom and how the teams are built and the where the full-time FTEs are, where the part-time FTEs are, FTE standing for full-time employee at all the locations. So to take a look at that. But this should help with this. No need to approve it. This is just what it is. If you'd like to approve it, we certainly can, but this is what it is, and we will. We do this every year. This was something that I think Charlie asked for and started back in 2015.
Yep.
2015-16 school year. There hadn't been an organization chart, and so we've done it annually after that.
Excellent.
This is not to be. This does not show our leadership model, but it does show how where people report to and so forth.
All right, very good. Yeah, I can see how this would come in extremely handy during budgeting season.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no other discussion items, which there aren't, we have our second session of public comments. So I guess we'll open it up to the online audience. We've discussed a lot tonight, but if there's any public comments on any of that or any other matters, certainly raise your hand now, and we can hear from you. All set? So board matters, I wanted to put a few things on there. I know as board members, we get these in email, and I just wanted to highlight them because there are some deadlines approaching. The first one on Wednesday, October 9th is the Kidder Law Conference. I think both of these are at the same center, the Boney Center. Well, it is. I know that in Concord, right? John and I attended this last year. You don't need to answer right now, certainly. But there is a deadline coming up in the next couple of weeks. So anyone wants to go, I think that inform Leslie and Kristen, I think Leslie had sent out an email. But certainly inform the business office and we can get registered and paid for that, because that's something that there is a cost to attend. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. I know there's a lot of information in those emails, and I went last year as a first-time board member, found it extremely helpful.
Ruben? I think it's the 8th and the 9th, is it not? I think it's 2 days.
Well, it's true, it's just one day.
Yeah, it's just one day, yeah.
Okay, I'll have to look at that. I have it on my calendar for 2,
Yeah.
but okay.
And what is the date? Is it it's early in October, right?
Yeah, the 9th.
October 9th. It's on.
It is, okay. I've gone 3 or 4 times and I found it extremely helpful. I'm not going to be able to attend this year because of, other personal things going on, but not only is the attorneys are first quality, they know the law and they've been working it all year, but they also provide a lot of good information in the form of written documentation that you can bring back and share with.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem that we had last year was figuring out which ones to go to, right? There's many different sessions, and it's difficult to, you want to go to all of them, a lot of times you can't. And I'll say that it's a good chance to just talk and network with. I remember I was in line with some education law lawyers, right?
Right.
And so just interesting people to talk to and get their perspective on things. So. Yep.
Yeah, I've gone to most of them up until recently, and it's worthwhile for anybody who can attend.
Yep, for sure.
If there's more than one attending, you can go through the agenda and
Yeah,
divvy up who goes
strategize.
where, and so.
Yep. All good things there. And yeah, so look through emails. I think Leslie had I think I probably messed up last year, like the paying for it or something, so we want to be sure we don't do that next year. And the next thing that we wanted to discuss is on October 19th, which I think is the day of the NHSBA Delegate Assembly. We also have that facilities meeting here at the school. So it's a big day for us. We've sent out kind of a draft School Board of Excellence presentation. There's still a lot more to be done there. But I'd encourage everyone to take a look at that, and we'll continue to work offline, and if we need to get back together to finalize that, because I know Lisa's going to attend, but we want to be sure that we have something, you know, a few weeks in advance that Lisa can work with.
You don't want me winging this.
No. We had a meeting. I kind of want to see that. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago, and I think there's a lot of good material there, and certainly continue to do that. And then I guess I put this on here. I wasn't sure how we wanted to handle it as far as the resolutions, Lisa, and
We gotta vote on them. You guys gotta tell me how to vote.
so how do you propose?
I propose putting it up on the screen and going through one by one. I don't see another way to do it.
Okay.
Some of them are really important, like, okay. None of these are legislative action. All of them are telling the New Hampshire School Board Association, this is how we want you to present us in legislation. Excuse me, legislation. And so they are valuable. They are not critical, but the vote is a real thing. And there's some things there that you guys, it might not be a clean cut. Yes or no, you guys, and I can certainly wing that. I did last year, but yeah, I think I got one response when we did it by email. So I'd like to do it in person. I know we're tired. I get that.
Can we do it next meeting?
I don't think so. Is it next meeting when we hear the middle high school? Or we're all done with those? We can do it next meeting if we don't have a big agenda.
We can do the next meeting. The only thing that we would have on that agenda that would be of significance that we would have to do. If we're gonna follow suit with what we're just talked about with facilities would be to have Gale and Associates. That's a much smaller presentation than the CTE.
Okay, good.
It's
Then let's do it next meeting. If you guys could read them
Yeah.
ahead of time. I think
Yeah.
there's 10 or 14. So if you could read them ahead of time, that would be great. And then we can look to them.
Yeah, I will send out an email. I know we probably all have them somewhere in email. I will take the action to send out an email to everyone in the next day or so.
Perfect.
Here they are, and we can do it as efficiently as possible on the October 7th meeting. I think that works out great.
Yeah, I will say if the majority of you email me your votes. Actually, no, let's not, because there's discussion.
Yeah.
We want to be
We'll
able
do
to
it,
discuss.
we'll do it in the public meeting, but certainly
Good.
pre-review individually will make it
Perfect.
an efficient process. All right, we are down to the last item on our agenda.
Under board matters?
Yes, Charlie.
Board matter I'd like to bring up.
Okay.
Okay, non-public meetings, minutes, which that have been sealed, are basically automatically unsealed after 10 years. And those that have been sealed within the last 10 years, we should, as a board, review the sealed minutes and determine which ones we can unseal. So I'd like Wendy or someone to go through and find out what minutes we have that are still sealed. And we can take a look at them and see whether we want to unseal them or not.
Bringing that up.
Probably no more than a dozen, probably fewer than that, but half a
Probably a
dozen.
handful.
Half a
I can't
dozen.
remember very many.
Yeah, there aren't many.
Well, that's good. It's certainly important to.
3 or 4 in my time.
Any other board matters? All right, can someone have a motion for adjournment?
Yeah, I think we ought to keep this thing rolling.
That's fine.
Let's get those resolutions out. Let's go.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Christine.
Second.
Thank you, John. All those in favor of adjournment, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes, and we are adjourned.
600.
6-0.
I abstain because I gotta wait here for my computer to make updates
Updates?
before it shuts down. So-
Well, yeah.